What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today we're going to be talking about a mangaka in the making. A lot of us, have different desires when it comes to what we want to do with comics. For me, I'd like it to become a career, and I was reached out this week by Perry Edwards here, who wants to become a mangaka. And I was looking at his stuff. I thought it was really cool. So, Perry Edwards, how are you doing? Let everybody know who you are and where they can find you.
I'm doing good. My name is Perry Edwards. I'm your friendly neighborhood mangaka in the making, making manga, publishing my ongoing shonen slash seinen battle manga, cold-blooded on Webtoon to Pastic, anywhere you can find it. I'm from Texas. I've graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Computer Animation, and now I'm pursuing this.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Do you work in that field, or what are you doing for work these days? Probably something different, or
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so like I'm from a small town in West Texas,
Mhm.
and when I graduated from high school, I transferred to the nearest community college, Odessa, Texas, Odessa College, and I got my traditional art classes and transferred from there to Sam Houston State University, and this is where it's kind of ironic because it is it's known. It's a university, but it's known mostly for its criminal justice. But I majored in computer animation there, and their animation program was kind of a fledgling program. Well, once I graduated, I came back home, and a couple months passed, and I applied to animation jobs, and they weren't biting. And I had a comic, that same comic, Cold Blooded. I submitted it to publishers, and they weren't biting either. And it's like I needed to get a job, and it's like I didn't want to. Uh, I didn't want to work at the grocery store again. That's where I worked during high school and community college. And I didn't want to do fast food or retail, so I became a jailer at the county jail.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've been working there for more than a year now.
Wow. How do you like that?
It has its ups and downs. I like it all right. The sooner I can get out of my hometown, the better.
Gotcha. Wow. All right. So, yeah, tell us about kind of what your aspirations are. You said you wanted to become a mangaka, and this is kind of like your way, your kind of route to doing that. And then tell us a little bit about your story that you're making.
I might call myself a mangaka, but I mean, manga is just comics. Mangaka, comic book creator, and it's in the style of manga. However, it doesn't. It's not so much in the style that where I feel a lot of Westerners go wrong is they set their stories in Japan, and then they think it has to read from left to right, and mine takes place in Texas, and mine reads from right to left, like an American comic book, but it's in a manga style. I use manga paper, um, and yeah, my aspirations is um, I want success, which success for me is I want my series to be popular. I want people to read it and love it, and I want to be able to make a living at it. And Cold Blooded is basically about Rim Snart misses his father, and while holding out hope after his father's disappearance 5 years ago, he discovers latent reptilian abilities brought out by a shadowy figure determined to end his life. And I've been putting it out for more than a year now, and I've ran a Kickstarter, and I have a physical copy here. This is what it looks like. Here's the back. See, turns into this. It transforms.
Wow.
It's
Nice.
also, yeah, I could show pages off on Webtoon, or I could do that in a little bit, but That's what it looks like. And right now, I've been promoting a Patreon. I just started a Patreon like 7 days ago, and I'm at 3 patrons at $7 or $8 a month. Um, and so I'm building that up.
Yeah, that's awesome. You ran a Kickstarter. That's pretty cool, and it looks like you have it. And this is his comic. If it's not obvious, this is his comic that I'm just kind of scrolling through a little bit of the first issue here. It's
Yeah,
on
and
Webtoons, and all the links for the Patreon and the Webtoons are down in the description.
and if you're apprehensive about the art, it gets better. In fact, the style kind of changes after this first issue here. I start to solidify it, um, and I try different things. Unfortunately, even though this is like my baby, this comic, unfortunately, it's also my guinea pig, where I get to just do and try different things. It's
Hmm.
just kind of the nature of the beast. Like here I'm using Copics. I use Copics for gray tones, and I do that for the next chapter. But then after that, I stop and I just go back to like doing digital gray tones. And then later on, I use Clip Studio for some things, but it's all drawn traditionally and scanned in. Um, and I've
Yeah,
been learning different things. I'm considering going back and re-lettering because I realize there's some things that are off about my lettering. Um, and since my Kickstarter ended, the first volume was 8 chapters, and I put out a couple chapters since then. And basically, technically, I have a couple more chapters done, but I've been working with the editor and letterer, and that's been somewhat of a slow going process.
right. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty cool from what I see. We're all at a different place with our art, and I think that I see some really cool storytelling in here, and layouts and stuff, and it seems just really clear, like what's going on, which is more than a lot of people can say. There's definitely it's like a tough thing. But yeah, no, I think this is a great start. I can't, it's so cool that you already did your Kickstarter and got the first volume out. I like that it's kind of in that manga digest style. What printer did you end up going with for that?
I used Comics Wellspring,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and
because I've been curious of possibly printing in that digest size too. I like that.
um, yeah, they're great. The you can pay more and get a faster turnaround, but or just do the slowest turnaround, 14 days or more.
Hmm.
And I think they have great customer service as far as communicating with you. And you don't have to make a PDF necessarily. You can just give them the JPEGs or PNGs, and they will make a PDF. But I do know how to make a PDF now. In the beginning, I didn't, so it's like I don't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It
that's
was
nice.
PDFs are weird. Like it's weird. They don't like. I don't know when you go looking for help to find out how to make a PDF. Sometimes there's a few different ways, and it's not simple. Like you would think there'd be a simpler method, but and
Yeah,
there is.
there's.
It just takes a minute. Like it took me a while to figure out how to do it.
I just use InDesign. I
Hmm.
know there's other roundabout ways, but
Yeah,
you're right. There's like virtually no information on how to make a proper PDF for a comic book. It's
yeah,
one of those things. Like I did Google searches and I can't find it. It's one of my problems with like the internet as a resource. 'Cause people say, oh, you can find out whatever you need to find out on the internet. Well, that's not exactly true. Uh, Especially if it's for free, because then any Yahoo can go on and be like, "This is how you do it," but they don't know it much more than you do.
right. Yeah, that's totally true. Um, So, what kind of inspired you to decide to get into making comics?
Well, I've had these characters in my head and on in my sketchbook since middle school,
Hmm.
and I thought I wanted to do animation to bring this story to life. Uh, and I'd been thinking I, more and more about comics throughout, I think, college, because I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could get a job in animation and work on my comic and then get my comic adapted? Because for a TV show, there's too much out of your control, in my opinion. I'd want it to be made exactly how it is, and especially after proving how difficult it is to get a job in animation or a comic publisher. It's like, well, why not just make my own and put it out there? And if it proves popular, then surely it can one day get some kind of animated adaptation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's pretty cool. It's funny. A lot of I notice there's a lot of people who wanted to be an animator, and they ended up doing comics instead, or they've thought of comics as kind of a way to bridge the gap, somehow. So I don't know how that all works. I've never really pursued animation too much, just a little bit, but I don't know. It's just interesting the link. There's always
Well,
a link there between animation and comics.
the problem with animation is I think it's too streamlined, and um, it's like if you're the creator, the showrunner, you're probably not going to do all that much drawing. I think I could be wrong, but it's like people have specialized jobs that they do just that job. And then there's the executives in the network, um, and it's like I don't like the idea of being at the mercy of someone else, whether your story goes on or not. That's my biggest thing. But the next thing is how streamlined it is, because it's like I would want to write and draw it, because I enjoy both those things, and I wouldn't want to have to choose between one or the other.
It's one thing that's kind of cool, that maybe you could even do independently is make animatics of your comics. I'm not saying like, taking the actual comic pages, like those are cool too, but like actually, make some animatics because there's a lot less drawing that you have to do, when you're doing that, and you can still get a lot of story out that way. It might be kind of fun.
Well, what I've thought about doing is I know there's some people that if you pay them, they can make a uh, take your comic and animate it. And that's kind of that's more than an animatic at that point. But I thought about doing that and then just put it on YouTube, and people can watch like the first chapter, right, and then go to the webtoon. Um, I thought about doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I've thought about that kind of thing too. I don't know. I haven't researched like who does it or where to go to do it. I'm assuming maybe I would start at Fiverr and see if people do it over there or ask around or whatever. I don't know who does that stuff, but have you looked into that?
Well, I saw like someone on. I saw I came across some Facebook page that said they do it, but I just found it, and that's what actually kind of what got me thinking about it. But I haven't looked much more into it because I could do it. It's a kind of thing that I know that I could do it myself, but it's like, do I want to spend the time
Hmm.
to do it myself or just pay someone else to do it?
Right.
Um, and yeah, the thing about you saying my my comic is clear, and it's like I guess my editor, he said I have great paneling, and I think clear storytelling is very important. Uh, if you're can't get your point across or it's lost on the viewer, they don't know what's going on, and
Right.
it's like I always strive for clear silhouettes. Right, a lot of the things that you learn in animation can be applied to um, comic books, And so like keyframes are just strong storytelling poses. In comics, that's all it is keyframes, strong storytelling poses, clear silhouettes, um, choosing dynamic angles and shots, and then flow too, because you got to think about each panel is its own individual composition, and then the whole page is a composition. If it's 2 pages, that's also a composition. You got to think about how it flows from one panel to the next, and how it flows within each individual panel.
Right. Totally. I mean, clarity is king, man, when it comes to comics for sure. Um, so I'm looking at your old Kickstarter. When did you actually run this? I'm trying to see if I can see.
I'm trying to remember.
It says it says last March, right? Or this past March, I guess.
Yeah, it ended in March. I believe it started in April and ended in March.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, is there a place where people can buy the book?
So I have copies. I don't really have like a store set up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could. There was this. I use Mailchimp, and like I've been able to use like set up this landing page or something through Mailchimp where people can buy it from me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because it doesn't notify me, so I'm afraid to use that link because it's like, well, someone buys that out. I don't know.
Right.
Um, so,
Well,
but
um, yeah, one place if you're trying to figure that out, if you're interested in selling them like that, is Store Envy. That's a pretty good place. It's free, and I mean, I think they do take uh, a tiny cut or something on the back end or something, but it's just a small fee, I think. It's been a while since I've looked into it. I had one. I still have it, but I just don't have it open right now. But yeah, Store Envy is a pretty good place. Um, but yeah, that's pretty cool. What are your plans moving forward? You gonna keep just pumping out more volumes of this?
yeah, so the plan is uh, keep putting out chapters until I get enough material for a volume 2. And then once I have that, I will do another Kickstarter for a Cold-Blooded volume 2. And in the meantime, I try to grow my Patreon and get some people on that and grow my audience as well. And I'm projecting the volume 2 to be maybe 10 to 12 chapters and sometime in 2021 next year. Um, and I'm quite confident it'll be done by then.
Yeah. How long does it take you to do, like a page or something?
So I started out real slow. I got gradually faster, and my goal was to try and get it done within a chapter per month. Uh, which even now I still don't quite get it done in a month, but I feel like if I budget my time well enough that I can. And sometimes if I want to be really strict, if I know when I storyboard it, I figure out how many pages I got, and it's like, okay, if I got 28 pages for this chapter, if I like divide it by 7, I get like 4 pages. If I pencil 4 pages a day, then I will have 28 pages by the end of it. Or I might do that, or I might just be like, okay, I'll just try and pencil a couple pages
Nice.
today, because any progress is better than no progress.
Yeah, totally. Well, it seems like you're kicking butt at the progress as it is. How much do you have written so far? Did you write a chapter at a time, or?
Uh, yeah, I do a chapter at a time. I storyboard it all and pencil it, ink it all, and scan it. And then I was lettering it myself and everything else. But then since I've got an editor, I sent it and I got it back lettered and formatted. But I guess we had a miscommunication because it wasn't formatted in a manga format, so I'll have to like wait longer on that. I already put it up on my Patreon, so if you read up to chapter 10 and you just do pledge $1, you can read my chapter 11 and see it with the new lettering and who is editing it and lettering it. And also, if you do $1 for right now, there you'll get a PDF of my volume 1 as well as PDF of chapter 10. And what I plan to do when I get ahead, when the next chapter gets done, I'll make chapter 11 free, and then I'll make a $5 tier. And for $5, you can read the next chapter. That's what I'm thinking. But I'll still have the $1 tier where you can get a PDF of the chapter of the month. So then chapter 11 would be the PDF that you get, and of course you can still download the volume 1.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's interesting. It's really cool, like I said, to see that you've made this much progress already. And when did you start this project?
So technically, I started about in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and the first chapter probably took me the longest because there were long periods of time where I just was not working on it. It just wasn't a priority, and I would write it, and when I write it, I just go straight into the storyboarding, and and then I'd sit on it. I wouldn't work for it on months on end, and then I'd pick it up again, and I might try to pencil it. And I think there was some contest, and it kind of motivated me to try and finish it. And I actually didn't quite do all 25 pages. I did only up to page 17. It's like, well, this is kind of an ending. But then I did eventually finish chapter 1, and then I had it in my head, okay, well, on chapter 2, I need to make it faster, and maybe this time I'll wait to release it until I'll try to make chapters ahead, just like in comics. They'll actually have multiple comics done, right? So they have a buffer. And that's what I was going to try to do for myself. And originally, chapter 2 was supposed to be a lot longer, but then I ended up splitting it up into chapter 2 and chapter 3. And then I released it, and I was ahead, but then I quickly caught up, so it doesn't matter. But now I'm getting ahead again. But that's only because I've waited so long, because it's been a couple months since I've released a chapter. But not that I'm not working on it. I'm still working on it. But
Mm-hmm.
I will be ahead again and try to keep that up.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. And do you have a plan for, like, do you know how many volumes it's going to end up being, or do you have like a end point in mind of where the story's going to end up?
I do. If um I I want it to go like a super long time, just like all the popular manga do. Um, so where I do have an ending in mind, but it's going to take a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And I think like I guess I'll say in like 5 years, if it's just absolutely not profitable or anything, then maybe I would quit on that comic and try another comic. Um, but I mean, I won't do that. I won't quit on it until I'm sure I've exhausted all resources. But I think that I have to get enough people to read it first to really determine if it's that kind of material, if it's got what it takes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, the more readers, the better, and you're right. Like, you can't really get a true understanding of if it has legs if you don't have, the readers to kind of give you that feedback and stuff. So yeah, everybody who's watching, go ahead and check that out. I mean, there's so much of it that's free, on Webtoons. You can check it out and read it, and see if you like it. Maybe subscribe on Webtoons, and he's going to have another Kickstarter at some point, so you can get the new volume or something, you know. Um, yeah, I think it's great that you're doing this, man. And well, I was curious too, like what manga is like some of your favorite stuff that really gets you going with this.
So my primary inspirations is Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, because that's what
Hmm.
I grew up watching, and I grew up watching Naruto.
Hmm.
Um, and those are kind of like my primary inspirations. Those are like my first love. That's like what started it. But I continue to be inspired by like even the current popular series like My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, Clover. And just other stuff I read that isn't even manga or that I might read or watch, and it just like inspires me and I think makes me better
Hmm.
creative.
Do you ever read any American comic books, or you pretty much stick with Japanese?
Yeah, so like since I've started on this endeavor, I've been gradually reading more and more American comic books. I had
Hmm.
read American comic books before, um, but not to the extent that I have now. I've been reading the original Spider-Man run on Comixology.
Oh, cool.
I've read up to the 200 issues so far.
Wow.
And, yeah, that was over time. And um, I've read some Batman comics. I like Batman. I've read Batman Year One. I've read The Dark Knight Strikes Back. And I read that White Knight.
Hmm.
Um, I read Watchmen, right? Because that's like the big one that they
Right.
say to read. Watchmen's really good. Um, I think Rorschach is probably like my favorite character.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, I've only recently, well, I say recently, but within, I don't know, the last 5 to 10 years, um, started getting into manga here and there, and man, one thing about manga is like it is just addictive. Like you could just go through a book really quick, and you just want to read more and more and more. It's like I don't see that sometimes in American comics. Maybe like it's kind of cool that you went back and started from the beginning of Spider-Man. I bet that is more on the addictive side. But yeah, I just love manga. There's so much energy. I love the pace, especially in the stuff that's meant for, like, it has a lot of action and stuff and adventure and stuff like that. So like you said, My Hero Academia is great. One Punch Man, I like all that stuff.
yeah, and it's addicting because it's quite the opposite of episodic.
Hmm.
Every chapter, save for the one shot, because the one shot is usually a complete story, more or less. But then when the series actually starts, every chapter has a hook and a climax, and like so basically, chapter one, it's kind of open ended. It has the hook. Then the next chapter, it's good. There's going to be a climax to that hook, but then there's going to be another hook that makes you want to read the next chapter.
Hmm.
And with American comics, they're more, or at least based on what I've read in the original Spider-Man, is they're episodic, but at the beginning they're episodic, but then they start to build up continuity and you get recurring characters, and it's very rewarding. And then later you get actually overarching story arcs where usually it's a villain in the shadows that's using other villains, and so it's still episodic, but then at the end there's like the overarching story that builds
Hmm.
up to that great climax.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's
and
interesting. Go ahead.
and while it doesn't necessarily uh, always make me excited to read the next issue, but I'm usually pretty satisfied in the issue I just read.
Hmm. Well, that's a good point, because it's kind of different reading this stuff nowadays, especially like if you're reading it on like Comixology, like you said, or I have like the Shonen Jump app, so it's kind of similar thing. So it's like you don't have to read one and then wait for however long it takes. American comics traditionally it's a month at a time. Shonen Jump is like,
Yeah, it's
it's
weekly.
weekly, so that's not so bad at least. But you get kind of small some clips of it sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. At least it's weekly though, because waiting a month for such a small piece of a story is tough. But I think that's why originally, probably a lot of the American comics were, like you said, episodic. It was a whole story in one issue, um, and when they started becoming more of something that goes throughout a few issues, I think that's kind of part of why they don't do so well anymore. Because you do have to wait a whole month, to get a little bit more of the story, and it's kind of frustrating.
Well, I don't think a month is that bad because there are some manga that are monthly, like
Hmm.
Attack on Titan, and One Punch Man is kind of monthly. It fluctuates, but it
Hmm.
comes out sporadically. Um, I think as long as a story comes out every so often is is great, whether it's monthly or weekly or biweekly.
Hmm.
Um, but American comics were episodic because they were at the newsstand, and so you didn't always have the luxury of reading the story in order. So it's like whatever you're gonna grab, it needed to be its own thing.
It's a good
And
point.
and whereas now we got the graphic novels,
Hmm.
and what I wish American comics had is if each publisher did their own anthology, and then people could just buy that anthology, and then they could just read whatever they wanted. And then if they had a new series, they could put it in there, and you already paid for it. So, like, somewhat you may as well read it, and you could introduce a whole bunch of readers to a new story. That I think that could work out really well.
Yeah, you mean kind of like the Shonen Jump way
Yeah,
of doing it?
exactly.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be really cool, actually. I think I wish they would. I don't think they will, but I wish they would. um, so cool, man. Like I said, I'm glad that you reached out to me because I think I like what I'm seeing with your comic, and I hope you do well with that. And like I said, everybody go check out his stuff. Once again, man, let people know where they can find your stuff.
All right. My name is Perry's Hotter. That's PERRYS_HOTTER. You can find me on YouTube, Webtoon, Tapastic, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and Patreon now. I got a Patreon, and all the chapters up to 10 are also on my Patreon as public posts. And you can read them there. You can read them on Webtoon, and then go to my Patreon for $1. You can, for right now, you can read the immediate next chapter, and you also get PDFs of Volume 1 and Chapter 10.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, once again, man, thank you for coming on. And, I wish you luck, man. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we will talk to you on the next episode. Later.